Good afternoon, and thanks for joining us. I'm Rebecca Gollin. According to the Census Bureau, about 90% of American businesses are family-owned or controlled. Family dynamics can make it difficult to keep those companies going. A recent competition brought students, researchers, and family business owners from around the world to the University of Vermont to test their skills. It was the 6th edition of the Family Enterprise Case Competition. Cameras were not allowed in the room during the competition, so Across the Fence caught up with some of the participants in between rounds to hear what they're getting out of the experience.
It's called Family Enterprise Case Competition. It's a student competition. We have 25 teams from around the world, from 16 countries to be precise. And it's a 4-day competitive event. Students get a case, they analyze it. Cases are essentially mini stories of mini dilemmas of what a business is going through, and students have to think of all the perspectives, all the issues, different stakeholders, whether it is profits and planet and people and long-term and short-term. So different variables that are really important to all of us as we think about a business.
We are one of the top 25 family business enterprise schools in the world. So to be able to have that caliber and be able to be surrounded by professors, faculty, but also students who are so passionate about that area or topic of business is really incredible.
It seemed like a very unique opportunity to come and meet people who come from similar walks of life but across different countries, continents and industries, and talk about family business problems which are very common all across the world. You may be from Europe, Canada, US, South America, or India for that matter, but I think everyone faces those very stereotypical problems, and different cultures may have different ways of solving their problems, and that exchange of information seemed like a good incentive to come all the way from India and kind of learn about it and implement it back home.
The most important part is just the learning experience. The fact that I have actually never competed in this sort of manner before. I thought, why not step out my comfort zone and learn as much as I can, as long as I can. I knew I was initially going to really struggle with this competition, which I have, but I feel that every time, the more we do it, the more we get better at it. And I think this is really important as part of becoming future leaders of my family business. We have to be willing to step out of our comfort zone, take the leap of faith, gain some new knowledge in order to bring whatever that we're doing in our life to new heights.
How do you work with teams to prepare for this? What kinds of skills do they need to have?
Well, first they have to have knowledge of family businesses. So some of them come from family businesses, but some don't. So you have this practical outlook on family business, but certainly also a theoretical outlook. So we prepare them in that way. First, like I said, addressing cases requires a certain skill, an analytical skill, and then presentation skills, and working on the time pressure. And that's basically the 3 things that we were working on.
Now, why is it important to offer this kind of competition to students?
Family businesses are the large majority of businesses, not only in the United States, but around the world. So the perception usually is when we say the word family business, our mind goes to the corner grocery store or a restaurant by a mom and pop. But when we just pause to think just a little bit, we think, oh, Walmart is a family business. It's in 3rd generation now. Oh, the Ford is a family business, and F.C. Johnson is. And then we start thinking it becomes harder to find a non-family business.
I'm someone who isn't part of a family business, but I always say that family business really gives you the eye to business with emotions. So often in business classes, I think we are given this idea that it's really black and white, making decisions, who should take over the roles or who we would pass on the governance to, or things like that seem very black and white, very obvious. However, in real life, emotions are involved and there are personal problems, and it's kind of the name of the game.
The solution that works in one place may or may not work in another. And that is also a great learning experiences, not only just for our students, but for all who participate in it. Because issues are the same. A brother is a brother, doesn't matter where in the world. A parent is a parent, a grandparent, a child, so think about the closest family relationships, and they are intense, both on the positive side and on the negative side.
So I don't think there's a formula which says, like, you know, if the problem is A and this is what you implement. I think just given the fact we are human beings, we are programmed very differently within a similar setup as well. So all Indians are very unique in the way, similarly all Americans are very different. And I think geography plays different roles. And I think, but what ties the entire kind of the world together is like the emotional aspect of being a human. And I think that comes in very handy when you talk about family business problems. So I think just exchanging those ideas across different countries is something what we are learning out here, and how to get that emotional card along with the logical application of solutions is something which I think is applicable all over the world, and you're not kind of constrained by geography.
Apart from all these theoretical knowledge that we have learned, I think what we've done is we've learned how to support each other when during the times of just stress, and the fact that we have been very supportive of each one another. I think this is a huge takeaway learning experience, and I think this is something that is really going to be helpful regardless of whichever adventure we venture into for the rest of my team.
As a coach, for me it was quite an opportunity to enlarge my network, because all the coaches of the teams are international family business scholars, and we've created a sort of community. And that for me, it was, a very big advantage of this competition. And like we're coming back here and meeting each other again, and we have working relationship. We work on papers or articles together, which the ideas are born here. So I think for me that is really nice. For students, they have a great time. So during the day, they are really focused. They're in business attire and they have to perform. But in the evening, they meet, they socialize, they network, and after that, they keep in contact because they travel all over the world. And I think here for the judges, we've got advisors, family business advisors, we've got educators, we've got scholars, and it's so nice to discuss family business. That's basically it. We're all, fans of family businesses here. Yeah.
The winners of that undergraduate division were from Carleton University in Ottawa, and we met one of the members of the winning graduate team. That was Jack Lee and his team from the University of Adelaide in Australia. A little closer to home, family businesses in Vermont are often rooted in agriculture. That means facing many challenges, from the weather to federal regulations like the Food Safety Modernization Act. Keith Silva visited a business in Thetford to learn about what changes they've made to keep their food safe and their customers healthy.
At Cedar Circle Farm in East Thetford, the produce looks downright immaculate. From the greens in the cooler to the blueberries on the shelf, the food here is the epitome of healthy, wholesome, and nutritious. Out in the fields, a few hundred yards from the farm stand, it's a slightly different story.
It comes from the soil. Farming is not a clean job.
Maya Fisherburn is the processing lead at Cedar Circle Farm. She's the first line of defense in making sure the food sold here is as safe as it is fresh.
The moment that it comes out of the field, we try to process and get it into coolers as fast as we can. We fill up these 3 sinks, and we have a rinse, a wash, and a rinse again. Everything gets triple washed here.
Fisherburn takes pride in the farm's sanitation guidelines, and she expects every member of the staff to do likewise.
Everyone that works here, you're not just a harvester, or you're not just a weeder. To keep the standards that we want, I want the harvesters to know, what it looks like when it's processed, how to process it, why it's so important that we, keep good standards and, don't get people sick and things like that,
The FDA's Food Safety Modernization Act, FSMA for short, was signed into law in 2011. The law sets standards that focus on the prevention of foodborne illness rather than reacting to a problem after it occurs. The food safety guidelines Cedar Circle put in place before FSMA was enacted puts the business in good standing to be in compliance with the law.
Cedar Circle is a model in so many ways.
Lisa Chase works for University of Vermont Extension. She specializes in agricultural tourism. Even with Cedar Circle Farm's proactive approach to food safety, there are still details in the regulations that need to be worked out.
Well, one thing that's really challenging for a lot of farms in Vermont is that these federal regulations were created for large businesses, huge farms that have had problems with food safety in the past. So those regulations are often set up for an entirely different type of agricultural operation than what we often have in Vermont. So here we have smaller farms and not so many steps in the processing till it goes out the door. And especially with direct sales, the farmer and the consumer are often interacting directly. They know each other. So one of our jobs with Extension is to help farms comply with the regulations without having the regulations become such a burden.
In addition to the farm stand, Cedar Circle also operates a summer camp. There's a pick-your-own operation, and the farm hosts several yearly festivals. The farm's reliance on community interaction means the public has to be incorporated into the farm's requirements in regards to food safety.
Running a farm is complicated and challenging as is. And one of the ways that farms in Vermont have really succeeded is by building community and building these direct markets. So for a lot of farms like Cedar Circle, those community interactions and being open is a key part of their business model. It's having multiple business enterprises within an already complicated farm structure.
To keep everything running as efficient as possible, Cedar Circle uses signage to direct customers to what's off limits, where to go in a thunderstorm, and the farm's policy on pets. The signs are a subtle way to include the public into the farm's culture.
It's almost invisible. It becomes part of the system.
Hans Estrin is a produce safety specialist with UVM Extension.
Food safety and the practices, good practices around food safety, can be integrated to make a real efficient, profitable, and happy farm. And it can be a driver, in fact, because when you start to think through and put on these goggles of risk reduction and you look at your farm, what it drives you to is this separation, coming up with systems, standard operating procedures, and writing them all down and separating them.
Across the Fence first visited Cedar Circle Farm in 2011. At that time, the farm required visitors to wash their hands before going into U-pick areas. Customers were skeptical at first, but understood the policy was for the greater good.
I've never been asked to wash my hands before berry picking before.
Janet Cathy is a longtime Cedar Circle Farm customer. When she was asked to wash her hands before berry picking, she was happy to abide by the farm's policies.
Anybody could have something on their hands that isn't clean, so it makes sense to have your hands washed. And then I realized that I could be leaving something on the berries for somebody else to get, so I understand about being considerate.
We also learned in our 2011 visit that Cedar Circle has a food safety manual for employees. When Fishburne started working here a few years ago, she didn't understand why the farm would need a food safety guide. She quickly caught on.
As a berry picker, when I first started here, I'm like, SOP system? I'm like, what? Yeah, they're teaching me to wash my hands and like rules and regulations, what not to do. But then during my second year, I'm like, wow, they actually have this all written down. What to do if like glass gets broken in here. They have every like scenario and how to watch every vegetable. That's typed out. I'm very lucky to have inherited that, and I hope to like tweak it and keep going with it.
For Estrin, policies and procedures, like those in use and on display at Cedar Circle Farm and other Vermont farms, make for good business.
I think the most important thing for retaining the character and beauty and openness of Vermont farms for visitors is that each farmer knows their customers, they know what the regulations are, they know how to look at their farm and reduce risks, and they know how to interact with their customers. We don't have a cookie cutter way to solve this problem. that will really turn people off and it will hurt the industry. We really need each farm to take common sense regulation and integrate it into their own farm.
From the field to the farm stand, a little common sense goes a long way in making sure the freshest food from Vermont farms is also the safest. In East Thetford, I'm Keith Silva with Across the Fence.
Thanks, Keith. That's our program for today. I'm Rebecca Gollin. Please join us again tomorrow on Across the Fence.